Shaman, and they expect Tempo Storm to try and counter with Turbo, they can actually get an advantage. So it's going to be a bit of a toss-up as to what compositions they're going to lead off to. It also have to gauge how well does Warrior Mage Shaman do against RMD, because RMD is probably the most likely comp that Tempo Storm is going to play, whereas the Turbo would be more of a wild card counter that they really haven't practiced. And having said that, if they haven't practiced it enough, WLS can beat Turbo. If Peekaboo isn't good enough on Warrior, or Jamili falls behind on Enhancement Shaman, WLS could punish them pretty hard with a lot of damage. It could be unlikely, but this is going to be interesting to see what comps both teams lead off with.
I mean, Tempo Storm, sorry for interrupting you. I just wanted to point out, but like Tempo Storm actually has been practicing so many compositions. Like they are, you know, just like putting as many tools into their toolbox as humanly possible. And this team is so scary because of it, because they've been practicing, because they've been putting in the work and, you know, familiarizing themselves with multiple compositions, which is very difficult to do. They have been doing a great job of just that. But Method, you know, Sidu in that interview said, you know, Tempo Storm specifically, we have no idea what to expect against these guys. And now they're going up against them here in the semifinals of the entire season tournament. Can they overcome this? I mean, they've overcome Splice. They beat the FLS. Can they take on Tempo Storm?
I think they can. I think they're one of the teams that can do it. Their WLS I think it can beat their RMD. It can beat their God comp. I mean, it could beat Magelock Paladin. They would just destroy if Chanimals played in there with Magelock or something like that. I'm wondering maybe they play something weird because they've got so many comps, right? Like they could even play RLS. I've actually seen a couple of RLSs on the ladder giving CD's team specifically a lot of trouble, I think. RLS was actually surprisingly hard for WLS, so they might play Rogue Lock. They could play Rogue Mage. They could play a Shadow Priest Mage. You really don't know what they're going to start with. I would assume Rogue Mage Druid, because that's what Peekaboo and Jamili just practice every single day. Goreki's very proficient on Resto Druid. They play very well synergistically. But we saw Method was able to take down Cloud9's RMD yesterday, so what's to say they can't take down Tempo Storms?
Yeah, for sure. And like we were talking about before the broadcast, like it's important to note that even though Tempo Storm does have a ton of comps available to them, just because they can play a comp doesn't necessarily mean they are the best that they could be at that comp. They have been doing a ton of practicing, like you said, so maybe they are just ridiculously good at all of these comps. But I don't necessarily think that the comp that we see immediately precludes exactly what sort of...
Wait, what?
Do you see
this is very weird. This is very weird.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So we have a Thug Cleave coming out from Tempo Storm. Now, if you're not familiar with that term Thug Cleave, that's completely fine because it's kind of some weird mumbo jumbo that us PvPers make up. It means it's a rogue hunter healer composition. That means that there's a lot of, you know, burst potential, especially considering Goreki is playing on that BM hunter. Now they're going up against Method's Warrior Lock Shaman, and they're playing Horde, so they're gonna, you know, they're gonna negate a lot of this stun damage that Tempo Storm has available to them, and those stuns are almost all the setup that they want or have on a Thug Cleave. This is insane.
The thing about this, though, is like Thug is much like Jungle, and Jungle is very hard for WLS, and Disc Priests actually deal with Warlocks very well until they run out of mana. So Method have to stay alive until Jamili runs out of mana. Maybe Jamili can't find a saving grace button or something. They could exploit that, but we see Tempo Storm just going in. They don't care whatsoever. Cheap shot on Smexxin, Sap onto Sidu. Murder of Crows already out onto Snuts. He could take quite a bit of damage, but a triple shockwave out from Smexxin, stalling out the game a little bit longer here as Sidu leaves that trap, but into a silence. Jamili follows it up into a full fear. Snuts is forced to gate away. Can he kite this damage long enough for Sidu to leave CC? He portals back to Sidu's side. Sidu needs to get some heals rolling. He should be able to do it. Smexxin's building a lot of pressure right now into Goreki, but Jamili's actually doing a good job healing through it. Another double shockwave out from Smexxin, forcing the pain suppression. They see the pain suppression, they swap onto a different target. They don't want to deal with the damage reduction. A haunt out onto Jamili, a full hex onto Peekaboo, exploiting the fact that they cannot remove it. Peekaboo is forced to trinket. They go for a kidney shot onto Smexxin, trying to get some pressure over onto Snuts. They land the full trap onto Sidu, and once again, Snuts needs to go on the run. Smexxin trying to peel Peekaboo. He's going to charge stun him, slow him up, trying to get him away from Snuts. This might be a link out from Sidu. He wants to hold on to it. He's not able to. Drops the link. They get a deterrence out from Goreki. Back and forth. Both teams in trouble.
Yeah, but at the same time, look at the cooldowns. There's so much available for Method still, and so little available for Tempo Storm, and you can see it in the health bars as well. Peekaboo now using his Shadow Dance onto the stun, onto Snuts. The Smoke Bomb comes out as well. Sea-Doo caught into the Wyvern. He's going to trinket out of that to try and get in here. He's going to go ahead and drop the Link and the Ascendance as well. So as soon as I talk about the cooldowns, that's everything remaining for Method defensively, with the exception of Snuts' Dark Regen. Can they turn this back around onto Tempo Storm once again? They're starting to get a whole lot of pressure here. The blind onto Sea-Doo. Snuts caught and taking tons of damage here. He was caught into the silence for just a second. Does manage to get the Dark Regen out. Sea-Doo now into that trap. Can Snuts survive through this? The Live Lord from yesterday, we saw it so well. Sea-Doo now coming out of the CC. Can he land some heals onto him? Snuts still in so much trouble, but Sea-Doo finally, the chain of CC has stopped. He's able to get a couple of very, very strong heals onto Snuts, and Snuts is now going to respond with his Dark Soul and try to put out some reverse pressure onto Tempo Storm.
Yeah, that Dark Soul is going to start building momentum, but Jamili still has half of his mana left. They still got quite a bit of time to burn through this. Sea-Doo has no trinket, no Dark Regeneration. This next Murder of Crows could end the game, but Smexxin lands a Shockwave over onto Jamili. Shadow Dance comes out. Murder of Crows is surely going to get popped. There's no way Snuts can survive. There's nothing left for him to stay alive. He's going to portal. He needs to get out of line of sight. There are no cooldowns remaining to keep him alive through this damage. He lands a double Howl of Terror, and because there are no dots, they have to sit through it. That Howl of Terror keeps him alive. Turns some pressure onto Gorecki. Execute connects. And Method turn around what should have been a losing situation and take complete advantage of Tempo Storm and take Gorecki down.
Wow, that was insane. Snuts had nothing to deal with that at the very end there. Taking a quick look at that replay, you just felt like all the momentum was in Tempo Storm's favor. I mean, they're almost tapped on trinkets, on pain suppression, but all that aggression on Snuts, that was like they're all in right then and there in Method. They're going to go ahead and survive through that and take game number 1 against Tempo Storm. And what a wild card of a composition Tempo Storm has thrown out there in game number 1.
Yeah, this is not the Method we saw yesterday. These guys have come back. They've done a whole bunch of practicing yesterday. They said, no, you know what? We're winning this thing. They have done so much between yesterday and today. They are just playing flawlessly. They're finding things that you didn't even think were flaws and somehow fixing those. I am really, really impressed with this. They should have lost that match, and yet somehow still managed to pull around that reversal onto Gorecki, get that kill, and take that first game. Very, very impressive play.
Yeah, really, really. And, Tempo Storm, we've been talking about how they have all these compositions available to them today, and we never thought that was ever going to happen. We never thought we were going to see, Thug Cleave, Jamili on a Discipline Priest, Gorecki on the Hunter, and, Peekaboo, of course, we would know that he plays that rogue. But, this is kind of funny. When I first heard of who Gorecki was, I knew he was a Hunter. That's who I knew who Gorecki was. So it was a blast from the past seeing him playing on that Hunter here in game number 1. That being said, we're going to be going into game number 2 here, and that means Tempo Storm gets to know what composition Method locks in preemptively and choose their composition accordingly to that. So with that being said, knowing that these guys have a whole bunch of comps available to them, where is this going to go?
This is where the disadvantages of spreading your resources too thin. Like, how many comps does Tempo Storm really need to be able to play?
Yeah,
like they're trying to just get as an absolute counter, but if you haven't played it enough, you're going to lose to the teams that have the veteran practice. So maybe if they've been practicing Thug Cleave for like weeks and weeks and weeks, they might have been able to steamroll them with that. But I don't think that was the correct decision to lead off with that composition. I thought for sure they would be playing the Rogue Mage Druid that they've always played, and their diversity kind of backfiring. They're trying to take every edge that they can, and now we can see that experience is going to be a little bit trumping the diversity if you spread your resources too thin on too many classes.
My first assumption on how on that matchup was that I felt like that was almost Tempo Storm cockiness, going with that composition, like that rogue Hunter Discipline Priest. Obviously, Gorecki's been practicing with these guys on a healer a considerable amount, and Jamili on a Discipline Priest, we don't really see that all that often. So, going with this composition, they had to have known that they aren't going to be on tip-top shape on this comp, but they have the confidence in themselves, and I don't think anyone can ever take that away from them, because we're going to be jumping into game number 2 here on Tiger's Peak, chosen by Method. And I don't know, I'm sitting here in anticipation to see what compositions Tempo Storm is going to be running every time. So we see a Peekaboo.
That's all we see.
That's all we see so far.
Oh, we said Jamili.
There's an R and an M.
There is an R and their M. Where is the D? This guy.
Oh,
right
man.
Here. Is it going to be a D?
The D? What's a D?
I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Gorecki is going to be jumping in to Tiger's Peak on his Druid now. So they're going to be playing Rogue Mage Druid here in game number 2 against the Warrior Lock Shaman. But, Method, in anticipation of this, they are going to be playing Horde once again. And those Orc racials really are so good against this specific composition.
Yeah, having all 3 of the members on your team with that 25% reduction in stuns works so well. It works against the Deep Freeze. It works against basically 90% of what the Rogue does, and even works against the Bash from the Druid. So definitely, I'm really, really liking, not just because I'm a huge Horde fanboy, but also because I think it makes an awful lot of sense for Method to be playing
Horde.
Horde.
Says otherwise.
Hey. Spoilers.
Oh man, Tempo Storm moving in, already getting triple CC. Snuts is completely isolated, but they lock Gorecki on the clone. That's going to alleviate Smexxin to try and stop something moving forward. Now with double Shadow Fury, Smexxin lands a full fear, charging back over onto Jamili, trying to build up some momentum here. Sidu, though, is caught into a stun. They're making a swap over to him with the Shadow Dance. A lot of damage. He's going to respond with his Gateway, teleport across the map, and try and escape the clutches of Peekaboo. A full Storm Bolt over onto Gorecki as we see both teams stacking up. This could be pretty devastating for Tempo Storm. We already see Gorecki forced to use his Bar Skin to reduce some damage, but Smoke Bomb gets dropped by Peekaboo to try and build up some momentum onto Snuts. And Smoke Bomb really not getting too much done. I think Sidu's in it, but he gets Nova. He Ring of Frost him off of a Nova, and now Snuts is completely alone, and Tempo Storm pull a 3v1 out of air. Snuts is going to portal away. He gets Kidney Shot on his portal. They follow it up with another Sheep. Gorecki's aimed, primed, and ready to get a clone here, but they're actually making a swap on a Gorecki instead. Snuts is still completely alone. He gates back to his team. He connects the link and stays alive, and now Smexxin's momentum on Gorecki is forcing him on the retreat, down at 20%, down in execute range. That's it. Smexxin's going to just finish Gorecki off, chopping him up like fresh sushi. And Tempo Storm is going to go down in game number 2, despite that being very scary for Snuts. Smexxin said, you know what, we need to get something done. I know that you could die, but whatever. I'm still going for it.
Fresh Druid sushi indeed, man. Well, yeah, that's game number 2, man. And all of a sudden, Method is 1 game away from taking out Tempo Storm, which was the tournament favorite going into this. Just 1 game away from 3-0ing them. This is incredible. I cannot believe it. But, Snuts getting so low right there. Getting the Spirit Link just in time. And, that swap over onto Gorecki because he had to Bark Skin preemptively. It just wasn't enough. He was in execute range, and that's all she wrote. Tempo Storm now down 0-2 against Method. And they got a long road ahead of them if they want to take out Method here in the semifinals.
I was just watching the replay too, and it actually is kind of amazing. You could really see the Orc racial make a huge difference towards the end there, because Peekaboo was right on Snuts, caught him into a full Kidney Shot, and then the cheap shot to follow it up. But because he had the Orc racial, it lasted. I think the math works out to be about just shy of a second less in the terms of how long he was actually stunned. And that was all he needed to be able to come out of those stuns and hit the gateway and get back over to Sidu, get that link, get that heal.
Yeah.
Really, you can see I'm pretty pleased with Method pulling out the Horde and getting some wins here. I'm pretty excited about that.
I have no idea why you are looking at your flag.
Normally, like as a warrior, you want to be like peeling and charge stunning the rogue, but they knew that clone was the only CC that Sidu could have been put into, and Snuts knew he could gate back to his team, so they had to communicate and just know they had to know that Snuts wouldn't die in the Kidney Shot to Peekaboo alone, though, which was actually pretty scary. But they knew that Smexxin needed to stay back and stop him from cloning, so that way when Snuts came back, Sidu could use something to keep him alive. And it just so happened they were trying to stop a clone, but ended up getting a kill with it. I'm wondering if maybe Gorecki should have just trinketed the Stormbolt. Maybe he could have actually gotten the clone if he did that. It seemed like it put him really far behind sitting through it. It's still close, though. I mean, Jamili, that Ring of Frost off the Nova was pretty sick as well. Can be very hard to do. I think Sidu tried to Windwalk it. I'm not sure if somebody killed a Windwalk before. I didn't see it break the root effect. But he ended up getting caught in that Ring of Frost, and those are the plays that Tempo Storm can pull out of their behinds every once in a while, and just you think you've stopped their setup, and then suddenly they get it off of nothing, and then you're really far behind. But it was good communication from Method. Snuts knew that he could survive by himself, and Smexxin stayed back to protect Sidu. So it was really good communication from Method. Let's see if Tempo Storm can clean up their act. I think their cheeky game number 1 Thug Cleave is backfiring here pretty hard. They're 1 game away from facing elimination.
Yeah, winning 3 games in a row against this very, very strong Warrior Lock Shaman. But not only that, an Orc Warrior Lock Shaman when all of your compositions seem to be centered around, stunning. It's going to be very difficult for Tempo Storm to figure out a way around this method, but they definitely can do it. But can they do it 3 times in a row? Here we go. The gates are about to open. It's Tempo Storm versus Method here in the semifinals. Here we go. Peekaboo moving forward with Jamili to try to get their opener here. The gateway does go down from Snuts right away. It's Tolvaron Arena. It's super wide and open.
Yeah, Tempo Storm's still playing patient, waiting for all of this healing rain on the ground to disappear. They want every advantage that they can get. Peekaboo moving in, looking for a sap. He gets the sap on Sea-Doo, cheap shot on Snuts, bash on Smexxin, triple CC from Tempo Storm. This is the opening pressure that they need, but they don't get the clone onto Smexxin. He's able to Blade Storm and immune it, and now he lands a full fear. Maybe they can rotate some pressure around. Double Shadow Fury from Snuts, stunning up Jamili and Peekaboo. Now with Stormbolt onto Gorecki out of that full fear. Jamili is getting pressured. He's forced to Blazing Speed away. Peekaboo is forced to use his evasion as both players are running down to half. Full dots now onto Gorecki. Snuts is doing a lot of damage to the entire team. He locks Gorecki out on that clone. I think that was a wind shear from Sea-Doo, trying to put Gorecki behind here little but surely and slowly. We see Shadow Dance out from Peekaboo. A lot of damage potentially for him, but no CC onto Sea-Doo. I think he grounded the deep freeze. That ground on the deep freeze, so important. Now tricketing out of that full blind. His team has all the momentum swinging in favor. Now onto Gorecki, just getting torn apart. Forced to Barskin and run away. Smexxin sees that. He's just going to go back to his team and support them. Jamili the target for now, trying to get back onto Peekaboo. They got 1 evasion. They're looking for evasion number 2. Peekaboo knows that. He's pulling back. He doesn't want to overextend, but he's caught into the charge stun. Still down to 50% HP. Gorecki trying to spam out some cast, trying to top off his team for the next deep freeze. Sea-Doo looking like he's in position, not able to ground this one though. Gets caught in the deep freeze. Master Flex and Counterspell stop the Polymorph. They go for the Ring of Frost anyway. They don't get it. And once again, Method shut down Tempo Storm.
Yeah, Smexxin now going back over here onto Gorecki once again, just trying to stay on him as much as possible. Barkskin comes out. The Blade Storm, though, right on top of it. He's going to go ahead and Displacer Beast out of there, and Smexxin's just going to turn back around and go after the remaining members of Team Tempo Storm that are over here, putting as much damage as possible into Peekaboo and forcing Gorecki to come back over. Peekaboo down to 50% health. He does not have does have an evasion available, so he will be able to use that if necessary. But really, all Method is doing at the moment is just cycling through Tempo Storm as much as possible, trying to make sure that Gorecki has to keep pots up on everybody. Makes it very, very difficult for him to actually keep up with the overall damage and gives Smexxin an opportunity to get those big chunks in with those heavy Smexecutes that he's so well known for. Now Gorecki, though, caught into that full fear. Are they going to be able to make something happen? It looks like Peekaboo is the target of choice at the moment. He's going to go ahead and use his Cloak of Shadows to mitigate the damage from Snuts. Sea-Doo now caught into a full Polymorph. No Trinket at the moment. Smexxin's going to get caught into that ring. Peekaboo in trouble, down at 30%, but with Smexxin caught into that ring, I think he's probably going to be okay for the time being. He's turning him back around over here, trying to go onto Snuts, getting him into that cheap shot there for just a second, but forced to pull back yet again. And Tempo Storm is really just not able to get the momentum going that they really need right now.
Yeah, we see Dark Soul from Snuts. He's trying to get a lot of damage right now. And can Gorecki deal with it? Gorecki's mana is looking very good, though, moving forward. If they can keep themselves topped off, they might be able to pull this into dampening even. Gorecki, though, caught into a full fear. They're just going to swap out of that fear. He's forced to run away with his Barkskin up. He's fully dotted, though. Snuts doing quite a bit of pressure at the moment. Gorecki looking for a clone. Connects it on Smexxin. Jamili looking for a sheep. Gets locked out by Snuts. And Snuts has been shutting down Jamili the entire game. But Gorecki falls over the clone. Great clone from Gorecki compensating here for that missed Polymorph. He polys him out of the clone, a very hard thing to do, and now Sea-Doo is forced to trinket and drop the link for that, and they're going to clone up Snuts, try and stall out the damage a bit as Peekaboo is feeling the heat from Smexxin. Charge over onto Jamili now, trying to pressure him as well. He gets locked on Frost, not going to be able to do too much with that lockout. Good dispels from Sea-Doo on Smexxin, keeping him mobile, but Gorecki again follows up with the clone. Gorecki pulling Tempo Storm back and trying to keep them together.
Yeah, Sea-Doo now only has that one Spirit Link available, and Dark Regen is once again available for Snuts, but Sea-Doo caught into this full clone, could force out that Dark Regen right here. Snuts down to 30% health, trying to hold on to it as long as possible, just sort of porting around as much as he can. Now a full Polymorph lands onto Sea-Doo. Can Snuts keep the kiting up? He has used his Dark Regen at this point. He's just sort of hanging out by the gateway, just waiting for it. There it is, gating back over to Sea-Doo. Sea-Doo gets caught into a short clone, but did manage to get the Spirit Link out before that Cyclone actually landed. Now now both Sea-Doo and Snuts temporarily caught into that. They're swapping it over onto Sea-Doo, trying to force him to pull away, and they have managed to force him to pull back to this pillar, which is going to allow him to heal back up, but it is also going to leave Snuts relatively exposed all the way back over here at this other pillar. But no, they're just staying onto Sea-Doo, trying to put damage into him. Instead, he does come out of that stun, gets the Earth Shield onto himself, but he could be in a lot of trouble. Down to 20%, gets a big heal onto himself. It's going to get him right back up to full health. Now they're swapping it back over onto Snuts, but their Method's trying to pull it back around over onto Peekaboo there temporarily. They do manage to pull the Cloak of Shadows out from him. Snuts still under a lot of pressure, getting caught in that full kidney shot. Sea-Doo caught into the full blind. He does not have his trinket available for this. Snuts could be in a lot of trouble here. No dark regen either. His Dark Soul is now wearing off. He does not have the opportunity to try and pull this back around. Sea-Doo caught into that Ring of Frost. Snuts still somehow alive. Sea-Doo, though, into that Cyclone, and that's going to be the end of Snuts, and Tempo Storm does manage to put up a game versus Method.
Oh, man, I was actually looking close because I think Peekaboo accidentally broke a full sheep on Sea-Doo, so the blind into Sap would have actually been half, but they followed it up with a Ring of Frost, and then into a clone, and then to a 1-second clone, and Gorecki really found his center, I think, about halfway through this game. Gorecki definitely carried Tempo Storm, and I think the kind of random swaps from Tempo Storm as well over onto Sea-Doo maybe put Method in a weird position. They had to use their cooldowns differently than they probably had practiced with the way that Tempo Storm was jumping around targets. So it was interesting to see how Tempo Storm managed to pull that into a victory, because they were getting shut down pretty hard for at least the first couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think that Gorecki, pushing in and getting those Cyclones over out onto Sea-Doo were almost necessary. I mean, Snuts, he was doing a fantastic job, locking Jamili out every single time he was going for that polymorph. But as the game goes on, this is a Warrior Lock Shaman. They have that Smash Bro effect. They have those groundings. They have those wind shears. There's a lot of ways that they can stop Jamili there. So the cross CC is so necessary. But Gorecki pushing in, getting those Cyclones, I think, was just as necessary for them to, really push in their setups, because the stops are really there for Method. But
just
both.
Watch the replay.
Isn't that crazy?
I think he jumped into the ring. Can you run it again?
At the very end, yeah. He wasn't. It didn't get fouled up. It wasn't like he just put the ring down and he walked into it at the very last second. It was a DR'd ring, but that's all they needed. He had no outs, and Snuts was in a lot of trouble. But there you go.
I don't know. I think Snuts might have lived if Sea-Doo was able to wind shear anything like a clone on himself. Snuts might have been able to live. I want to watch it. I'm just watching it. Oof. See that poly that Sea-Doo got broken out of?
Yeah.
And then that means the blind sap would have been DR'd. It actually was looking pretty okay. And then he blinds him. He probably should have died in the blind. I'm just watching it really slowly. So he puts ring down, doesn't land it. He gets out of it, but jumps into it. I don't think Snuts would have died if he didn't jump into it, because he would have been able to wind shear the clone.
He probably wasn't anticipating getting broken out of the poly though either. He's probably like smashing his base bar. He's like, "Come on, get me out of this CC!" And then all of a sudden he goes into a ring. But man, Tempo Storm, they're back in it and they're fighting their way against Method here. They take their very first game of this series. It's now currently 2-1 in favor of Method. Just one win away from Method locking in their position here in the grand finals of the tournament. Tempo Storm, man, they got their work cut out for them. So we're going to be waiting on these map choices as well as the comp choices from both these teams. So just a reminder, we do have one more giveaway from Jinx right before those grand finals. We're going to be giving away, I believe, a hoodie. Yeah, I believe we're going to be giving away a Jinx hoodie. So if you want to see what hoodie is available for you to choose, there's quite a few options. Go ahead and check out that button below to see what hoodies you'd be potentially winning. I know there's quite a few of you entering these these contests, but you could win. I mean, every single time someone wins, they're like, I never win anything. So if you never win anything, it could be you. But here we go. It looks like both teams are sticking with the same comps. We have the RMD for Tempo Storm, and we have the WLS for Method.
All right. They still only need one more win. Tempo Storm have to take 2 more wins in a row to defeat Method. And Method now have their map pick. Dalaran Sewers, the home base for their WLS. Let's see how well Tempo Storm can track this game on the home turf of Method. Curious, I'm just checking specs. I want to see if there's anything too out of the ordinary. Doesn't look like everyone's pretty much playing standard stuff. Nothing too strange.
I do really like this map choice from Method. A big part of what allowed Gorecki to get those Cyclones off in the last game was they were able to kite Smexxin far enough away, just because Tolvaron is such a large map. They were able to kite Smexxin far enough away that he wasn't able to interrupt the clone onto himself. And then as soon as Smexxin was put in a Cyclone, that gave Gorecki a huge opportunity to move in and put the Cyclone onto Sea-Doo. So I do like this much smaller map choice from Method, which will prevent a lot of that just by virtue of the fact that you can't kite Smexxin far enough away that he can't charge to interrupt the Cyclone. But here we go. The map is now starting. The sap immediately onto Sea-Doo, followed up with the stuns onto Snuts, putting as much damage into him as possible. The follow-up polymorph onto Sea-Doo is going to lead into that deep freeze, which will allow them to put even more damage into Snuts, and they're actually managing to force that Spirit Link out right away. No trinket from Sea-Doo there, so he does still have the trinket link available. He's going to go ahead and pop the Ascendance as well, just to top his team back off again. So kind of a overall even trade there, I think. Oh, Smexxin having to use the die by the sword may have gotten caught off guard a little bit there, not really expecting that, but now he's going to turn it back around over here, start to go on to Peekaboo. Peekaboo's going to pop that Cloak of Shadows right away, just to make sure that Snuts can't follow up Smexxin's damage with that extra stuff, but now Smexxin caught in that Cyclone. Can Gorecki get a follow-up Cyclone onto Sea-Doo here? There's the deep freeze onto Sea-Doo. Gorecki's going for the Cyclone. He does land it onto Sea-Doo. Sea-Doo's going to trinket that right away and move in over here, getting ready for that Spirit Link if necessary. There's the Blade Storm from Smexxin. Blind onto Sea-Doo. Gouge onto Sea-Doo. Smexxin could just die right here. The Gouge is still on Sea-Doo, and the second Spirit Link is going to come down. And now Method, they've got nothing in the tank. They need to get a kill right here, right now.
Yeah, Tempo Storm are playing this matchup so much differently than we've seen even Cloud9. They're just swapping targets and forcing Method to use their cooldowns in ways that maybe they're not used to. And Tempo Storm are trying to split up their strategy a lot and pick different targets. So it's really smart by them. They're getting really far ahead of it, the game because of it. We can see Smexxin just forced to chop up the water elemental. Method cannot leave the pillar. If they leave the pillar, they're basically saying we lose because they have nothing left really to survive. But that means that Peekaboo gets a re-stealth. Everyone gets hotted. Gorecki has Heart of the Wild up right now, which tells me that they're going to commit this next attack to win the game. Smexxin and Snuts and Cedar, they're getting ready. They got the capacitor totem down. Here comes Tempo Storm. Are they going to pull the trigger? Jamili's got some icicles built up. There's the cheap shot on the Snuts. Cheap shot over on the Cedar. They're making a swap. I think onto Cedar. The Rupture is up. Shadow Nance gets popped. A lot of damage follows it up, but Snuts is getting the peels. Triple stun out from Snuts is pausing the game for a couple seconds here, but now caught into the Garrote silence. A lot of burst following it up, almost dying in a Garrote. But Cedar is going to survive this setup, and that was the setup to win. Tempo Storm don't get the kill, and now Method have an opportunity to try and come back.
Yeah, amazing work from Snuts and Smexxin there to split that up and give Sea-Doo the peels he needed to survive through that. Now they've swapped it over temporarily onto Gorecki just to get that bark skin out of him. Did not get the Iron Bark. And now he's actually got a reflected Cyclone onto him. This could be a lot of trouble for Jamili right here. Jamili does manage to drop the Ring of Frost, which is going to slow up Smexxin temporarily, but now the fear coming out from Snuts goes onto Jamili. That gets dispelled right away, or broken somehow right away onto Jamili. Now the triple Shadow Fury, though. Can they follow this up? They're trying to stay on Gorecki as much as possible, keep him from getting off any of those Cyclones that he needs so desperately. The kidney shot comes out onto Snuts. It looks like maybe Peekaboo wanted to go onto him instead, but now pulling back a little bit. Smexxin doing a good job keeping Peekaboo caught into combat, just making sure that he does not get the opportunity to get out of line of sight and get that re-stealth. Peekaboo, of course, just trying to stay away from Snuts at this point in time because he does not want to have to use his Cloak of Shadows just yet. And now both teams once again starting to pull back a little bit. Peekaboo is not going to get that re-stealth that it looked like he was going for once again there. They're just going to go right back in, actually. Does manage to get a couple of these with his Shadow Dance. He's just chaining that stun onto Snuts, trying his best to keep as much lockdown as possible. Snuts could be in some trouble here. He does have the Dark Regen available. Sea-Doo gets caught into the full Cyclone, does have his Trinket as well. They're just holding onto this stuff as much as possible. Sea-Doo actually does Trinket and drop that Spirit Link, but fortunately Snuts has managed to hang on to his Dark Regen as well. So he will still have that available if necessary. And Method, I think, is doing, even though Sea-Doo is now running on fumes once again, they're doing a great job of just dealing with Tempo Storm's pressure whenever they possibly can, even with the little pushes that they're making that they really should have to use a lot more on.
Yeah, we see Jamili just a target for now, but a kidney shot on Smexxin. Gorecki looking for a clone. Snuts shuts down the clone. Can Smexxin shut down the rest of the team afterwards is the question. He throws a Stormbolt on Gorecki, pausing the clones even longer. Smexxin doing a good job to shut down Gorecki, now putting him into the fear. They have to stop Cyclones. He reflects the Polymorph. Good plays from Smexxin there. Snuts opened him up, and Smexxin just saved the day, keeping his team open to play. Jamili getting charged over, and Smexxin finding some confidence as he's switching over onto Gorecki. Not going to overextend, though. Got the bark skin, baited it out, instantly goes going back onto Peekaboo to try and pressure him in the back line. He's going to have to pop that evasion. A lot of pressure up from Method is mounting here, but here's another kidney shot on Smexxin. Here's another play. Can Snuts open up his team to save the day? They land the clone, but they don't land the sheep. Great shutdown from Snuts. Sea-Doo does break up the crowd control, but he actually gates away and unfortunately got clipped by the Ring of Frost. Now he's really far away from Snuts. A lot of damage following up this play. Now into the full clone. Snuts is on the run. Can he save the day? He's down at 43% on the run, trying to get back to Sea-Doo here, popping his Dark Soul, but half blind follows it up. Snuts is doing a great job, though, maintaining his health very high. Still has that Dark Regeneration if he needs to use it as the last line of defense. He's still holding on to it. The Sea-Doo caught into a 1-second clone. Smoke Bomb gets dropped. Tempo Storm are trying to end this game here and now, but they're just not finding it. Sea-Doo is able to keep Snuts alive, and man, that was greedy, holding on to that Dark Regeneration throughout.
Yeah, greedy, but it definitely paid off because he does still have it available, and of course Sea-Doo will have his trinket available again very, very soon, and a minute remaining on his Ascendance and Spirit Link. Snuts does get caught into that Cyclone there temporarily, but Smexxin just doing a great job constantly shutting down Gorecki, not allowing him to get nearly as many clones out as he's really, really like in this situation. There's a Cyclone coming out. It is going to land on a Smexxin. Can Gorecki get the follow-up Cyclone out of Sea-Doo here? Looks like he's not actually going to go for it just yet. The Ring of Frost was starting to be cast by Jamili there, but it actually got canceled. He does manage to land this one, which is going to catch several people, but Gorecki was caught into a fear from Smexxin, which has prevented, again, those follow-up Cyclones from going out, and Gorecki just really hasn't been able to get nearly as many Cyclones as he really wanted to. Now caught into that stun as well. They're putting a bunch of damage into Peekaboo and a fair amount of damage into Jamili, just forcing Gorecki to keep hots up on as many people as possible, but now Snuts gets caught into that stun temporarily. There's the Deep Freeze onto Sea-Doo. Gorecki actually gets silent, or gets reflected on the Cyclone. This is huge. They're putting a bunch of damage into Jamili, may be able to force a block here. They do get the Iron Bark out, and that means the Iron Bark will not be available for Peekaboo, who they're now swapping back over onto. Peekaboo does have his evasion available again in just a couple of seconds, but is it going to be in time? Yes, it looks like it will, as they did manage to get Smexxin into that Cyclone, closing down a whole lot of Method's pressure there, and Tempo Storm is going to survive to continue putting out as much pressure as they can.
I like those cheeky plays from Smexxin. He uses his trinket to reflect the clone. Snuts is doing a good job to shut down this Shadow Dance, but will it be enough? Sea-Doo is just getting torn apart. He gates to the opposite side. He's desperately trying to kite away. Caught into a 1-second stun, down to 15%, connects the link and saves his team. Another reflected clone from Smexxin is pausing the game out even longer, giving Sea-Doo the time he needs to recover with his Ascendance. He should be able to top his team off here. Now that we're kicking into dampening, Method need to try and find a way to strike. Snuts still has his trinket to try and get something done here. Gorecki gets locked on his clone, caught into a stun now as well. Jamili actually used his block there to try and build some damage. Maybe they can punish him for that. He's still now no longer on hypothermia action, but he gets caught into a capacitor totem after his blink, and his second block gets forced, and suddenly Tempo Storm are running out of cooldowns. Sea-Doo survives the swap. They do need to deal with this Shadow Dance effectively. In about 12 seconds, Tempo Storm is going to have a lot of damage, and if they don't shut it down, they could easily lose the game. Full Storm Bolt over onto Gorecki. Smexxin just going on the assault, trying to force Jamili back. A full fear onto Gorecki. Smexxin's looking to finish the job. Peekaboo is forced to Shadow Dance defensively to try and save Jamili. He does it. He keeps him alive. Heroic Silence over onto Sea-Doo. Are they trying to swap? Doesn't look like they are just yet. Smexxin actually seems to be the primary target for now, but he's got to die by the sword. I think he's going to survive. And that aggressive play from Smexxin baited Peekaboo into having to use his Shadow Dance defensively. And now that Peekaboo does not have Shadow Dance, Method can feel much more comfortable, at least for another minute.
Yeah, and Sea-Doo does have his trinket available once again, so Method has to be feeling pretty good about this right now. There's only the Bark Skin available for Gorecki. The next couple of swaps from Method, if they can land them in the next like 20 or 30 seconds or so, could be deadly for Tempo Storm. Smexxin now just wandering over to Jamili over here. Jamili has no blocks for quite some time. There's the Smoke Bomb, though. Smexxin caught into it. He's going to pop the Die by the Sword, gets cloned off of that. He's going to actually be able to get out of that and continue putting up some pressure here. Actually, now just finally going into defensive stance just to limit that damage. That was a hard swap onto Smexxin, maybe caught him in battle a little bit unaware there, but now putting some damage into Peekaboo. Peekaboo does not have evasion available, so Smexxin just continuing to keep up as much pressure as he possibly can, and that's really been his role in this, is to just keep the constant pressure going as well as interrupt every single Cyclone that Gorecki tries to cast. He's caught in that cheap shot there temporarily, could be in some trouble here. Sea-Doo into the bash, into the full polymorph, still has his trinket available, but holding on to it. Smexxin gating back over to Sea-Doo. That's an amazing gate. How did Snuts even get that gateway there? That's crazy. Actually managed.
He intervened the blind? He intervened the blind! And now Seadou's going to be able to hold on to his trinket. Great intervene from Smexxin. Then might be able to take the game off of that momentum. A lot of pressure on Jamili, a lot of pressure on Peekaboo. Gurecki's slowly getting tapped out of mana. Tempo Storm have to pull back. They need to get a drink here, and Gurecki's getting the mana. I wouldn't be surprised to see Seadou get a drink as well. Now with blind not being available, he's probably not going to get another blind for the rest of the game. So if Seadou just can get mana, he can use his trinket safely and know that he doesn't need to worry about blind with dampening being so high. I don't think Gurecki's going to be able to deal with the damage. Jamili's going to have a block in about 19 seconds, but he's pushing forward before that point. He's getting dotted up a little bit by Snuts. Method are still playing this cautiously. They could still lose the game. Shadow Dance is available. Smexxin is really the only target, though, they can exploit. With Seadou having his trinket, Snuts having his trinket, they're going to be very hard targets to take down. Let's see how Tempo Storm decide to play out this. This could be their last chance to win. Full kidney shot onto Smexxin, cheap shot over onto Snuts. Seadou staying out of line of sight, trying to ground the deep freeze. Not able to get it, but they're just doing so much damage to Snuts. Maybe they don't even need CC. They get the Ring of Frost. I wouldn't be surprised. Trinket Link comes out. Method knows that they need to answer this Shadow Dance. They have to stay alive. And now that Tempo Storm got that answer, I wouldn't be surprised to see them just pull back. Smexxin's not going to let him get away for free, though. Charging right out into the open. Smexxin has his trinket. I'm surprised he's not going to go across the map with that trinket and die by the sword. He's very tanky. I would almost think he wants to bait them to go on him. He's going for the Blade Storm now, crossing the map. Smexxin's looking to try and end this. They need to get some dots up, build up some momentum. If Peekaboo gets a re-stealth here, it could be scary, though. Gurecki dispels his dots, instantly re-dots him. No re-stealth for you. Full kidney shot over onto Seadou, though. This is the last chance. Desperation swap over onto Seadou. Can Method keep him alive is the question. Master Flat comes out. It reflects as an Ice Lance. That might just be enough to keep Seadou alive, but Gurecki follows it up with a nice offensive clone. We see Recklessness out from Smexxin. He's trying to smash Peekaboo or Jamili apart here. Jamili getting locked on that poly, forcing the Iron Bark, but Seadou is just getting soloed by Peekaboo. Jamili connects. How is Seadou going to stay alive? He has no cooldowns left. Rallying Cry gets popped, but I don't think he's going to make it. Shadow Dance should be enough to finish him off. He gets caught in 1 second stun in 5, 2, 1, 2, 3. What the? He's not going to live. Peekaboo is going to go down, I think, but it might be a cross kill. Seadou is ending up going down. Such a close call. Smexxin get blinded on his trinket right at the end. If he didn't get blinded on his trinket, man, he might have been able to finish it.
Oh my gosh, what the heck? That was insane. I saw Peekaboo in that Storm Bolt. I surely thought he was going to go down. Seadou got out of line of sight there at the very end, taking a quick look at that replay and how close that really was. Holy crow, Tempo Storm is going to take game number 4 here and tie up the series now 2-2. What an amazing series so far between these two heavyweights. Keep an eye on Seadou's health. It gets so low from this Shadow Dance and the damage of Tempo Storm, but the Shadow Fury and Peekaboo at super low health. He's so close to execution sentence. You know Smexxin just wants to end it so badly, but that's all she wrote. Look at that blind, man. The desperation blind coming out from Peekaboo. And there you have it, everybody. There you have it. We have ourselves a series. It is tied 2-2 going into match point. Method will have the choice of the map.
What even killed Seadou at the end? He was out of line of sight of everybody.
Off, I think.
Oh.
To lose the health. He was like, oh my god, he was like 1 second away from getting a heal.
Yeah, I was so sure he was going to live there, and then he just fell over. It must have been the rally falling off. I thought it had already fallen off at that point, but
yeah.
It was just time dilation or something, like just playing with my head.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a year, but in reality, it was 4 seconds. Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Whew. So we are going into match point, guys. It's Tempo Storm versus Method. This is pretty freaking hype. If you guys are just joining us now into the broadcast, here is the look at the semifinals and the finals of the bracket. Please sponsor us. Took down We Back in a 3-2 nail biter, locking in their position here in the grand finals. Tempo Storm is going up against Method. Right now, it's currently tied 2-2. That means the next game will determine who goes and faces. Please sponsor us in the grand finals. And we're just waiting on map choices as well as composition lock-ins from these teams, and we're going to jump right back into it. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining us here at GCD TV. This is the very final tournament of the Winter Pro League, and it's been amazing so far, so thank you guys all so much for that support. We are going to be jumping into a Spring Pro League, potentially be jumping into a North American Spring Pro League. More information on that will be held on our Twitter. I believe we are also going to be opening up a GoFundMe for the prize pool of that Spring Pro League. So yes, we have been getting more sponsors and whatnot, but we do still need to accumulate a little bit more to give these players an incentive, to compete. That being said, we actually asked a whole bunch of super high rated players if they'd be willing to donate some of their time to help us accumulate this prize pool, and the amount of people that were actually willing to come and help us out was astonishing. We have a gigantic list, so you know, this GoFundMe, if you guys do donate and support the dream for the Spring Pro League, you actually do get an opportunity to get coached by some of the best players in the world. And when I say some of the best players in the world, I mean literally BlizzCon champions. I mean, like, literally world champions. So the list is unbelievable. I mean, players like Walter Bear, Absturge, Joe Fernandez, No Lifer, and that, like, the list actually just goes on and on and on. So if you want to get you know, coached by, like, the best player, the best player of your favorite spec, that is going to be available for you on that GoFundMe page to see how much we can raise for the player prize pools of the Spring Pro League. That's all going to be happening after this. There'll be more information on our Twitter about that. That's going to be so freaking cool. I cannot wait to get that going because I love seeing all this participation from the entire PvP community. It actually was a pretty incredible response that we received to that. So thank you to all of the players watching. I really appreciate that. But going back into the series, we are at a match point between some of the hypest teams in the entire tournament here in the semifinals. This is pretty insane. I actually could not ask for a better semifinals than this.
Yeah, this is one of those series that you look at and you say, this could have been a finals right here. Like, these two teams are just playing so tremendously well. Even in that last match, C2 like almost survived by like that much. Almost made it through. And of course, Tempo Storm coming back from a 2-0 deficit to tie it up 2-2. This is an incredible series. Both, again, they're both just playing so incredibly well. I could not be happier with this series.
I mean, and they also are playing Horde.
Yeah, which helps me quite a bit. Makes me very, very happy to see people playing Horde.
Well, I mean, it really is. It's paying its weight in gold, specifically against like this RMD. It's a big deal. It really is. So while we're waiting, we're just waiting on comps from these two teams before jumping into this final series, giving me a little bit of time to get some shout-outs going. We did get 11th month resub from Zarkzy TV. We talked about this. For 11 months in a row, man. I really appreciate that, brother. We also got another resub. Bajira, the one and only, has been subscribed for us for 11 months as well. Oh my gosh, there's that many months that we've been doing this. That's crazy. Thank you, Bajira, for that support this whole time. AJ the DK has also resubbed for 9 months in a row. So that consistent support from you guys is really awesome. Thank you. You know, it's been pretty incredible. We put together like these sub goals, and we let you guys choose what the sub goals are going to be, and you guys love that. We still don't know what our sub goal should be for the 300 subs. So if you have a suggestion on what it is that you'd like us to do at 300 subscribers, send us a tweet. Just send a tweet right at GCDTV_, and let us know what your idea is, and we are open to all sorts of ideas. I love to bring up this idea, but Hannah hates it when I bring up this idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. A 300 sub goal for Clutter to cast. She's holding her face right now. She hates that. She came to me and she's like, you know, it'd be really cool if I could commentate too, you know, for those nights that, you know, you have to solo cast and you don't like lose your voice. And I was like, yeah, that would be really cool. We should make it a sub goal. And at the time she agreed to it. And I don't think that she's so happy about agreeing to that back then. But we can hold her to it, I think. She's smiling. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. There's no stink eye or anything like that. It's a smile. So that's one idea for a sub goal. If you have another idea that you'd like our 300 sub goal to be, feel free to tweet us about it. We'd love to hear what your ideas are.
You can tell though, like the way Tempo Storm played that matchup, going on Smexxin early on, definitely made him more cautious towards the end of the game. Because I honestly, at that one point where Smexxin had his trinket, Tempo Storm was all running away. I was surprised to not see Smexxin just jump in. Like he had all of his cooldowns to survive and maybe bait them to go on himself. But I think he didn't just jump in because of the opening swaps on him. He was too scared. He didn't want to throw the game. And because Tempo Storm put Method into like that ultra defensive position, WLS is already having to play from that point. But because they were there for so long, the mess up on the intervene blind actually ended up not mattering because blind came back up right at the end of the game. So I'm not sure if they could have capitalized on that moment towards the end. But you have to give credit to Tempo Storm for switching their strategies up, switching targets to make sure that Method have to be on their toes and maybe forcing them to make mistakes.
What do you think the chances are of seeing the Snuts Mage come out?
Kind of like 0.
Yeah.
0? Okay.
I think I think they're gonna stick with Warrior Lock Shaman. I really do. If there's any composition change up, it's gonna be from Tempo Storm here, even though they just won that last game. Personally is what I think, because I feel like Method really wants to stick to their guns. They really want to feel like they're playing the best comp that they have available to them. And you know, so far it's really not been a disadvantage against the compositions that Tempo Storm has available or has been playing against them. I mean, we saw the Thug Cleave, but they're playing Orc, man. Like they could deal with it. Then they see RMD, they're still playing Orc, and you know, it's working out for them. It's a close enough matchup where they can play their very best comp. It's up to Tempo Storm to really find that composition advantage, but at the same time, it can go either way. As we've seen, this RMD has pulled it out 2 times in a row. So it's up to Tempo Storm. I don't know. At the same time, Method is pretty well known for making me look dumb. So they have changed compositions on me when I'm like, no, there's no way they're going to change. And then we saw Warrior Mage Druid come out, and that was against Splice. And I'm like, oh, really? So now that I said that, I could very well be jinxing it, but we're going to have to find out and see. They're taking their time, man. This is a pretty hyped matchup between these two teams. It's Tempo Storm and Method, and we're still waiting on composition lock-ins from both of these guys. And, you know, they're thinking long and hard about this, but the queue has popped, and we are ready to go. Game match. It's Ruins of Lordaeron. And, yep, that is going to be an RMD versus WLS. Whew.
I do think the map choice of Ruins of Lordaeron is going to help Smexxin out a lot here, in being able to just stick onto Gorecki and stopping those clones as much as possible. There just isn't a great place for Gorecki to go run and hide, or as many places for Gorecki to go and hide. And we know how much Sea-Doo loves to live in his little dungeon down over here. So I do think this is a solid map choice from Method here versus those Blade's Edge would have been their other option, I guess. But yeah, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, you know, Blade's Edge.
I don't know if this is going to be a long game or not. I'm wondering how long Method can stay alive on runes, because it's very open, and Snuts is going to have a hard time kiting. We've seen him kite in the past on this map very well, like using the gate, portaling back to the tomb, just all over the place. So really, Snuts is going to have to kite like a god. He's been kiting like a god throughout the tournament. So as long as he can stay on top of it, I think Method can still take this back. They're 1 win away. Tempo Storm now 1 win away from advancing to the finals as well. Tense moment for the teams facing elimination. And you can see the Method don't want to give up that defender's advantage. If they leave this room, they expose themselves in the open field. It's a huge disadvantage. And I actually wouldn't be surprised to see them just stay in the room and just sit here. We've seen them charge out before, but this is it. This is their last chance. So we might have a bit of a stalemate for a while here.
We do have Illicore, the Observer, wandering around out here in the middle, maybe looking for a target that could actually get cycloned. Now Peekaboo moving in with the stun onto Snuts. Now the deep freeze onto Sea-Doo. Do they have the follow-up CC for that? No, it does not look like it. Gorecki actually gets feared off into the corner here on that cyclone. Now the stun coming out as well. Snuts still, though, taking a lot of damage, answering with his Dark Soul, trying to put out as much counter pressure as he can. Jamili gets put into a really short fear here. They did manage to get the Bark Skin out from Gorecki. He's having to play kind of defensively. And now the entire team of Method just bumping out here, jumping out through that gateway over here to the tomb, just trying to stay offensive. The blind comes out with Sea-Doo has to trinket that right away and drop that link, because Snuts was dipping super low there for a second. And he's also already used his Ascendance as well. So actually this is looking pretty shaky for Method so far.
Sea-Doo caught into a kidney shot, but they don't have enough damage to follow it up. Another swap out from Smexxin forces more cooldowns out from Gorecki. Now he's starting to run out of time, running out of cooldowns. These Druid swaps are looking really good from Smexxin. Oh, but Jamili lands the random sheep. Sea-Doo tried to ground it, but he just got caught in the open, not able to get it. Snuts is on the run here. Can he escape death? Master Fleck comes out, but it doesn't connect the clone. It stops the poly, but Gorecki follows it up with a clone. Can Snuts stay alive? He's actually staying very high health, which is very important here, but he gets locked on his fear by Peekaboo. Peekaboo is just harassing him as much as possible here. He's trying to get dots out now that that kick is gone, but Smexxin's eating the clone, and as soon as Tempo Storm lands this crowd control, they start taking the game back in their favor. Let's see how well they can use this next deep freeze available in about 12 seconds. Shadow Dance coming off cooldown. They might just go even with just pure damage. Gorecki's looking for a clone. He lands it on the Sea-Doo. This could be the game. So much damage on the Snuts. He gets stunned on his trinket. Rallying Cry comes up, down at 15%. Dark Regeneration and Hellstone keeps Snuts alive a little bit longer. He Shadow Fury's Peekaboo on his trinket, and Sea-Doo gets the link. A close call for Snuts. Easily could have been the game, but well played. They survived throughout.
Yeah, but they are so far on the back foot now. There's so much defensive ability available for the team of Tempo Storm and very little to nothing available yet left for Method. They're going to have to be super careful with how they continue from here, and they need to be locking out these Cyclones as much as possible. Sea-Doo does get caught into this full ring. The Stormbolt comes out onto Gorecki, stopping the Cyclones, but there's still so much damage going into Snuts. The Sheep lands onto Sea-Doo. This could be the end right here. The Sheep shot onto him. The Smoke Bomb comes out as well. Sea-Doo still caught into so much CC. How is Snuts still alive? Sea-Doo manages to land a couple of heals there. Snuts now trying to get a fear off. Does manage to land that fear onto Jamili, who is going to not trinket through it. He doesn't want to overcommit to it. Actually, he does trinket super late. The clone lands onto Sea-Doo. Second clone, follow-up, half clone onto Sea-Doo. He's going to go ahead and trinket out of that. Gets caught into the stun right away, but did manage to land a quick healing surge onto Snuts in the middle of that. Somehow Snuts is still alive. The non-stop CC onto Sea-Doo. Does he have anything else for Snuts? The Ring of Frost is going to come out, but no, it actually gets canceled, and Jamili actually has to block the reverse pressure from Method, buying them some time to get back into this game.
I don't know how Snuts does it, but he does it so consistently. He has a secret that nobody knows to survive throughout things that should not be survivable. We see Smexxin just chopping away at Jamili, Peekaboo getting a re-stealth in the backline. Did he disconnect or something?
Oh, no.
I think,
No way. Jamili, it looks like he is disconnected here inside the bush, which is very unfortunate for them. Hopefully they'll be able to log back in to continue to compete here because there are no replays. That'd be a very unfortunate disconnect for Tempo Storm if that is what's going down. Let's see.
I'm not sure if it looks like both Jamili and Peekaboo might actually, unless Peekaboo's just standing there because he's waiting.
Yeah.
Snuts actually just Snuts isn't trying to kill him right now. He's just keeping him from re-stealthing just in case it actually comes up. Method with the sportsmanship they have all been so well known for in the past seem to just be waiting for Jamili to come back in, but it looks like maybe they got tired of waiting and they're just going to go ahead and go for the kill here. Jamili does get the Iron Bark, but with him apparently disconnected, it looks like Method may end up just going ahead and taking this here. Peekaboo's still trying his best. Jamili, despite being offline, is doing an amazing job surviving at the moment.
Oh, he's back!
He's back! Oh, he's back in! All right. Well, here we go. The game back on again. Little intermission there from Tempo Storm, but Jamili now moving in here. Does not have an ice block available. Might just go down right here. The fear lands onto Gorecki, and that's going to be it. Jamili is going to fall. Very unfortunate way for this series to end. I don't think anybody, including Method, is very pleased with that as an ending. But yeah, that's going to be that.
That's going to be that indeed. Oh, man, that's very unfortunate for Tempo Storm here to go down to Method here in match point. But they are going to be moving forward to those grand finals to take out, or to take on, I should say. Please sponsor us. Please sponsor us. This is probably the team that they didn't want to face going into the grand finals, to be completely honest with you. They probably didn't want to face, you know, the Lock Shaman, because that's what they said in their interview. They really didn't want to face the Lock Shaman. You know, Tempo Storm does have the Lock Shaman available to him as well, but Method has been doing so well with it, and it looks like Gorecki isn't going to be going down without a fight. But there he finally... Oh, what? How are you alive still?
Just demonstrating his Live Lord abilities through the remainder of the match.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't think anybody is happy with how that went.
Not at all.
You absolutely can't blame Method, though, in that situation. Like, if they wait and then Tempo Storm gets a whole bunch of their defensive cooldowns back as a result, like, Jamili had 0 ice blocks remaining. If they wait and Jamili gets his ice blocks back and then they lose because they waited,
right?
Like,
yeah,
that's horrible.
Just as bad as them killing him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Yeah. It's a really unfortunate scenario, especially because of how fast-paced the games are and how there's no... Yeah, it's very difficult, especially as dampening gets bigger. There's a lot of different variables, and it could go either way depending on who disconnects. So it's a very unfortunate scenario altogether, but unfortunately... fortunately, I should say, the first 4 games of that series were unfreaking believable. But Method overall, they're going to be taking it, and they're going to be going on to the grand finals with a little bit of luck to take